Hello, everybody, and welcome to Risky Business 3, Insurance for NEMT. As you probably know, that's non-emergency medical transportation. Thank you for joining us. I am Kara Marcus, Knowledge and Resource Manager for National RTAP, and the 3 means this is the 3rd episode in our Risky Business series. Now, it's sort of a fun title for those of you who might remember there was a movie with that title, but it's a serious topic. Risk management and insurance. Risky Business 1, which started a couple of years ago, covered sort of the general basics of risk management and insurance for transportation. Risky Business 2 covered insurance pools and insurance for the smallest of agencies. And now we are very pleased to bring you Risky Business 3, Insurance for NEMT. So a little housekeeping. We will be posting the recording and slides, hopefully by tomorrow, definitely by next week. If you have questions, you can ask them at any point in the Q&A box in Zoom, and our panelists will address them at the end of the panel discussion. If you're having trouble with Zoom, please chat with us. We'll try to help you. And the last slide will have a QR code for a post-webinar survey. You'll also get that tomorrow via email. So stay tuned for additional webinars or workshops on this topic or any other topic. Actually, this is the final episode in Risky Business, but we certainly have a lot of webinars in the pipeline. So a little bit about National RTAP, if you're not familiar with us. We are a technical assistance center funded by Federal Transit Administration, FTA, through its Section 5311 Rural Program. We provide free training materials and technical assistance, such as this kind of webinar, to rural and tribal transit providers and to state RTAPs. We're governed by a review board, 14 state DOT and rural and tribal transit agency managers from across the country. Our website is pretty easy to remember, nationalrtap.org. Here's a screenshot, so we hope you visit. We provide many free resources and services, training manuals, videos, e-learning, information and best practices. We have tech briefs, toolkits, topic guides, articles, news, technology tools for procurement, cost allocation, website building. Our newest one is Ride Sheet, and we have a webinar on our cost allocation calculator coming up soon. Peer networking and training via webinars, conferences, roundtables, and online forums. And assistance, one-to-one assistance through reference services and tech support. Please bring us your questions at any time through our website chat, through phone, through email. We will do our best to help you with anything you need. And what is TACL? TACL is the Transportation Technical Assistance Coordination Library, a lot easier to say TACL, which also helps rural and tribal transit agencies find resources about transportation coordination. It's a project of the FTA and its technical assistance centers. I'm not going to read them all, but I will let you know that soon TACL will be welcoming a brand new technical assistance center, the CCAM TAC. We're very excited about that and the expansion of TACL. TACL also has an easy to remember URL, transportation-tackle.org. It has quite a bit about NEMT if you're interested. So now we're excited to have a really great expert panel here to explain all about insurance for NEMT, including Peter Hicks, who's the Executive Director of NEMT, and he's going to explain exactly what NEMT is and does, in case you're unfamiliar with it, as well as Evan Chambers, who's the Managing Director of Higginbotham, which is an insurance company, and Philip Wright, the Corporate Risk Consultant for the Wright Risk Consultants. Another play on names, risky business, right risk. So we're really, really pleased to have all of these panelists with us today. At the end of the webinar, you'll have a chance to ask each of them or any of them your questions. So they're going to go through everything you need to know about insurance for NEMT. starting with Peter.
Hello. Hopefully everybody can hear me. My name is Peter Hicks. I'm the Executive Director for NEMT. We're an Arizona-based nonprofit 501c3 corporation formed in 2018. We are the ANSI accredited standards developer for the NEMT industry. The American National Standards Institute is responsible for establishing standards for each industry nationally. Most people know Underwriters Laboratory from things like your plugs and extension cords that you buy at the big box store, and they'll have the small UL logo on them. Well, we are that for the NEMT industry. And so as the accredited standards body, we solicit input from the industry from all levels, from providers through brokers and payers up through states to develop those standards for the industry so that it's by the industry and for the industry. We're also an accrediting body, so we recognize those organizations that meet the gold standards within the industry for outstanding performance, quality, policies, and procedures, and then share those best practices with others. We're also a certifying body. We provide education and certifications for NEMT drivers from the ambulatory level of service up through advanced mobility device securement, such as wheelchairs, and then on to stretcher operations. And then lastly, we're also the host of a national industry conference. This year we'll be in Dallas hosting that conference at the end of August, August 24th through the 26th. So look forward to having you there. If we can do the next slide.
Yes, and we are really grateful that you're co-hosting this webinar with us, Peter. We've been involved with your conference as a resource supplier, and I know you do a great conference.
Thank you so much, and we do appreciate that. It's been an excellent partnership, so we really like being able to do things together with other organizations. So a little bit about the standards we're currently working on. We talked a little bit about the driver certification. Currently, that standard is being adjudicated. In fact, we'll finish it up this afternoon. And so that will determine the minimum amount of information that an NEMT driver needs to have in order to successfully be a professional within the industry. We're also working on vehicle standards defining safety, accessibility, and maintenance guidelines for those NEMT vehicles. We're working on operational excellence standards, and that being those best practices, how to schedule, how to dispatch, things like that. Most importantly, in the last year and a half has been talking about the technology, which almost seems backwards, but by defining what data and how that data is transferred from the lowest level all the way up through CMS, it helps make a consistent pattern for us to be using the same language as we're talking about silly things like on-time performance, because we all have in our mind what that means, but it's measured very differently from one organization to the next. And then, of course, we're working on organizational accreditation standards. Our accreditation standard is currently a NEMT standard. We haven't finished pushing it through the ANSI process because we determined that we needed to do a basic NEMT standard first. So that is going through the process right now, and then those two will be out for public comment. And when I'm saying that it's out for public comment, that is truly going up on a website with a form where you can read through the document and comment on every element of that standard, because we truly want that input so that you understand as the consumers what it is that we're establishing as the measurement for the industry. The volunteers that are on our advisory committees always laugh at me because I say we are creating the ruler. We're not telling them how to use it or which knuckles to wrap with it. So hopefully you'll look at those, be able to use them in your organization, and have a very successful time with your business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. And if you could please put your website URL in the chat if people want to, see some of the things you were talking about, that would be great. Okay, now we're going to turn it over to Evan, whose title slide says, "Help me with our insurance costs." I bet everybody wants to know that. So Evan, please take it away.
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Kara, for having me into the phone. Philip and I both are NEMT exhibitors as well, so some of you may have seen us there. But yeah, the big topic in the NEMT space is insurance costs, right? So I just kind of wanted to, some of this may be common sense, some of this you guys may have heard before, but I just want, one thing that I feel like my job is to do is to educate my clients on how the insurance market sees NEMT and NEMT operators, and how my clients can best create a program, create a company that the insurance underwriters will look at in a favorable manner, right? So what can we do to make them look the best in the insurance market? So anyway, just wanted to kind of give some insight on how it all works. So Kara, if you'll go to the next slide. So three kind of, if you're like me, you can't remember too much. So I'm trying to keep it simple here. Three objectives. Why are NEMT rates so high? What is affecting the rates, and how can I get the best rates? So we'll go to the next slide. So why are NEMT rates so high? So the short answer is claims. That for any industry in the insurance market, whether you're NEMT, construction, manufacturing, or whatever the case is, your rates are going to be pretty much a direct result from your claims. So, and what I tell my NEMT clients is that rates are increasing for everyone in the auto market. So I don't want you guys to think that NEMT companies are getting unfavorable targeted against by the insurance companies. So you'll see in my next little point there, insurance companies lose money in insuring vehicles, whether that's your personal vehicles or a Coca-Cola distributing company, whatever it is. Insurance companies, for every dollar they receive in premium, we're typically paying out like $1.07, $1.08 in claims. So they and this has been going on for about 15 years. They're just continually losing money insuring autos. And I think this is the number one cause right here, is distracted driving, right? Everyone's looking at their phones, checking emails, texting, whatever the case may be. And the distracted driving it's not gotten any better. So it's really increasing for everyone. But when claims are high for a certain industry, for NEMT, premiums are going to increase for everybody, right? That's how insurance works. So if you're running ABC Transit, for example, and you don't have many claims at all over a 5-year time frame, okay, one, you're going to get the best rates, but your rates are still going to be high because XYZ Transit down the road just had $1 million claim, right? So when that happens, rates are going to rise for everybody in that same class. The other obviously aspect of NEMT is that the passengers that you guys are transporting, any auto accident, what's going to happen. Even if nothing really happened with the passenger, for the most part, most of them will go get an attorney, and they're going to come and make a claim, right? And some of them, are injured without an accident, right? So I'm sure most of you have had instances where maybe passengers slip out of a wheelchair during the transport, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they're sitting on a pillow, and that, which is always makes for a unfavorable type transport. But and then also you guys are dealing with a vulnerable population, right? So most of these passengers don't have good trunk support. They're they're elderly, and you guys are transporting for a reason. So any kind of incident, any kind of bump, any kind of accident, it's not going to be great. And so not only are insurance companies paying for the damage maybe to another party if you hit another car or something like that, but they're also paying what's happening inside the van too. So when that happens, these claims can get really high, multi six-figure, 7-digit claims. So I've had multiple instances where there's 7-digit claims. So and then another reason you see a rate environment the way we're in now is insurance companies, when an industry is having a really hard time being profitable for the insurance companies, you'll see insurance companies just take a step back and say, hey, we're not going to insure NEMT operations anymore. So when that happens, you have a smaller pool of insurance companies who are able to offer coverage. And when that happens, rates tend to rise even more as well, because there's just not as many insurance companies out there that are willing to provide coverage. So, and then you have startups. They tend to cause a lot more claims as well. Not all of them, but it's just that's just the way it is. Someone who's starting up for the first time may not pay as much attention on their hiring and training practices and stuff like that. Not everybody's not broad brush, but we're also seeing a lot more claims coming from startups. So hopefully that gives you guys some insight there. We'll go to the next slide here. Okay, so what are the main factors that are affecting your rate? So one, again, claims. So if you take anything away from this, do what you can training your people, on defensive driving, wheelchair, stretcher securement, whatever the case is, so that you don't have claims. As you'll see, that's the number one thing that underwriters look at when they underwrite any company, is they're going to take a look at their claims history. You guys probably all know. But also geographical location. So I put a few states here that are a little bit less favorable from an insurance company standpoint. And these things you can't control, right? Unless you want to pick up your company and move to another state. But Florida, Louisiana, California, New York, New Mexico, Virginia, Michigan, New Jersey, Georgia. These are just a few states. I may have left a few out, but if you're in these states, sometimes it's just you could have a clean record and there's not much you can do, because these states just have unfavorable tort reforms, unfavorable laws for insurance companies. Therefore, any insurance company offering coverage in these states, they're going to get their rate for it. Another thing is technology usage, right? So if you don't have cameras, inward facing, outward facing, I would highly recommend getting them. I've had clients before tell me, well, that could be damning if my people did do something wrong and caused an issue or accident. And I said, yeah, you're absolutely right. But don't you want to know that so you can remediate that? But what was hard to swallow is if you have a frivolous claim that said, hey, your driver did this and now my grandmother has a hairline fracture in her hip, and you don't have anything to combat that. So it's their word against yours. And if you can't give your insurance company objective evidence to fight that, I mean, we've all been there. Sometimes insurance companies, all they can do is pay some sort of sum of money to make the claim go away. So, but more than anything, I would certainly recommend getting cameras in all your units. A lot of these manufacturers are really getting good with AI in their camera systems, accident avoidance technology. They detect red lights and stuff like that. So anyway, I would really, if you can, I know it's a cost associated with that, but anything you can do to avoid those type scenarios is better. Hiring practices. So I put this before training. So I would say several years ago, I would say that training was more important, but I've come to kind of my realization from what I've seen with my clients around the country, it's more important, I think, to hire the right people, put the right people behind the wheel. And I know we're all coming out of this, the COVID labor shortage, so that's good. I know there was a few years there that was pretty tough to hire people and keep people. But hiring the right people, taking them, I think Peter was just mentioning that, getting background checks, running their MVRs, doing drug testing, alcohol testing, making sure you're putting the right person behind the wheel and then training them properly. You don't want to get those mixed up. You don't want to just hire just anybody off the street and then try to train them, because it's hard to train a bad apple. So I've over the years, I've come to realize that hiring the right person is probably more important than training, even though you got to do training, but making sure you put the right people there behind the wheel. And then other factors is types of transport. So some operators are ambulatory only, some do wheelchair and ambulatory, and then some do all three: stretcher, ambulatory, wheelchair. So that's going to play a small role in it. Some insurance companies don't want to see a lot of stretcher transports. Others don't mind it. So it just kind of depends on what that mix is for you. I tell my clients, I never want to tell you, don't do stretcher, don't do wheelchair or whatnot. I mean, go do what's best for your business. And we all know stretcher transports give a little, it's more money to the operation, but just make sure to do it right. But these are all the main factors that an underwriter is going to look at. There's a lot more details that goes into it, but if you have good claims, again, geographical location, you can't change, but if you have cameras, you have great hiring practices, and training practices. And that's another thing, is make sure that that's written down, right? Have an employee handbook with the training outlined in it so that we can share that with the underwriters, because just saying that you have that in place is one thing. Actually showing it that, hey, they have it documented, this is what every employee has to go through. That takes it to another level that we can share with the underwriters. So having all those things in place is going to be very helpful for you. How can I get the best rates? So number one, this is not a plug for me or Philip, but find an agent who specializes in the NEMT. There's several around the country. What I mean by that is, in insurance, every industry has its own unique exposure to risk, right? And then you got to know the right insurance companies to go to, have the right coverages in place so that you don't have an uncovered claim that costs you 6 digits. So finding an agent who knows the space, knows the industry, knows the insurance companies that insure the space the best is very important, and who also understands the coverages that need to be in place in your policies. Not every policy is the same, so just racing to the bottom trying to find the cheapest policy. I mean, I understand it's expensive, but you're going to pay a good amount of money anyway for insurance policy. You want to make sure that you're going to be covered adequately. So find the right agent. Like I just said in the last slide, implement and adhere to strict hiring guidelines. Again, I know it's tough sometimes if you need a driver quick, if you had someone leave or whatever, but don't forsake your hiring guidelines just to get someone behind the wheel as quickly as possible, because that driver who's never done it before, he or she is going to be your next big claim, which is going to be really tough for you and claims stay with you for 5 years. So that's another thing. Build a driving and patient securement training program. So if you're not doing this, if you're not doing this in-house, there's a lot of third-party companies out there who can help with the driving and patient securement training. So just look into that. Just leaving it up to chance is not a very good plan. So make sure you're training your people the right way. And then again, utilize technology, telematics and cameras. That's key in today's world. And telematics too. I mean, looking at harsh braking and acceleration and all these other kind of metrics can give you a snapshot of who's your best drivers and who are your drivers that may need a little help, right? Maybe you need to bring them outside the routes and say, hey, go take our test again, or hey, we're going to have our trainer ride along with you, for the next 2 weeks, whatever that case is, to figure out what's going on, in hopes that you're going to catch that before the next claim happens. And then, we have something internally saying that I love, and I tell my clients is inspect what you expect, right? If you're not diligent about looking under the hood to see what's going on of your operation, I wish we all could just train someone once and they understand it and use it every day, but that's just not the case. It's human nature. We kind of forget, we get a little lazy. So, you know, have a quarterly training or monthly training, whatever that case is, but also have a drive along with your drivers, check in on them in your cameras or telematics system if you have it. Just inspect what you guys expect out of your drivers, make sure they're actually doing it and adhering to your company policies and procedures. So anyway, I know that I just gave you guys a lot, but that's what we're seeing every day in the insurance marketplace for NEMT.
Okay, that was a lot of great information. Thank you. Did you put your email on one of your slides in case people wanted to get in touch with you after?
Yes, ma'am. I think it's on the next slide.
First slide.
I think there's the next slide.
Okay. The next slide is Philip. So if you can just put your email in, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Absolutely.
Oh, no, here it is. Yeah, here's your email. You don't need to do it. Sorry. Okay, there you are. All right. So, and other contact information too, if you have questions for Evan after this. So now we're moving on to Philip's presentation.
Oh, thank you very much, Kara, for having me on, and thank you, Lord. Thank you for the opportunity. And we're going to ditto a lot of things that Evan has said because they're just right in line with what we have to do in order to save ourselves some money when it comes to NEMT insurance and making us the safest drivers as possible. So if you'll go to the next slide there, that actually, I believe that's my contact information there. If we can help you in any way, we'd be glad to. We operate in about 23 states. And so if we can help in any way, let us know. As Evan said, we're going to talk a little bit about being sure that you find an agent that it has NEMT experience. Now, that does not mean that Evan or I are the only ones. There are several agents out there, but just be sure that you get one that does. Today, we're going to talk about hiring the right people. We're going to talk about developing a great safety program, choosing the right broker or agent, and then be mindful of your vehicles. Here, if you go to the next slide there, we'll talk about hiring. Choose mature drivers if you can. I know it's real easy to find some young drivers, but a lot of times they're the ones that are going to cost you when it comes to your insurance cost. A lot of the companies will look at the actual age of the driver and they're going to rate accordingly. Not all companies do that, but some do. And so we want to definitely be there. Be sure you're checking your MVR before you hire them, not afterwards. I can't tell you how many people that we've have hired drivers, then they decide to check their MVRs, and then all of a sudden we're saying we can't add them, and that becomes a real issue for them. And so we want to be sure that they check those MVRs before hiring. As Evan had said, perform random ride-alongs. It's very important for you to be inspecting what you have told them to do and make sure that they're doing that. Discipline or praise is always a good opportunity when it arises, and you could do that through your camera system, which we'll see a little bit later. But it gives you opportunities to praise them as well as discipline them when it comes to how they're performing their job. But it's always good when we can praise our employees and helps them, encourage them to do a better job. Here, if you go to the next slide, developing a comprehensive safety program. As Evan mentioned, you need a specific safety manual and training requirements. Most insurance agents will be able to help you put that together if that's something that you need. And so be sure and ask them about that, and be sure that you have something that's very specific. Install a good camera system. Evan's already talked about that, but it's very important that it does have the inward and exterior facing cameras, because a lot of times the claims are going to be clients that are inside the vehicle that are saying that they got hurt. And sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes the severity is not as bad as what they make it out to be, and the camera system will help in that situation. Invest time in monitoring the driver behavior. When you've got a good camera system, you can go back and review the footage and be sure that you take some time each week to monitor those driver behaviors. And again, you can use that to praise them or to discipline them for what they're doing, because using that camera system for more than just if you have a claim is real important. So be sure you do that. Be sure you have a strong cell phone policy. Many insurance companies today are looking at, if they are caught with a cell phone in their hand and they get a ticket for that, that is the same as the DUI. So it's very big deal if they get caught with that cell phone in hand. And so be sure that you have a strong policy against using cell phones while they're driving. Evan had mentioned random ride-alongs are very beneficial to go with your drivers, get to know them a little bit, and encourage them as much as you can to keep their safety thing that as best they can. And be sure that you're observing their tie downs and so on, because that's where a lot of the claims happen, where wheelchairs are not secured properly, stretchers are not secured properly, and so on. And then I've already mentioned use camera results for discipline and for praise. Sheriff, you'll go to the next slide. Choose the right agent. We've already mentioned that, and we'll mention it one more time. They understand your business, and that's very important, because they know the companies to go to, and that's the real key to getting you a decent rate, is having the right markets. They'll know the available markets. They'll make carriers aware of your safety measures and implemented the safety measures that you put in place. They'll provide for procedures for your safety manual. They'll also be able to sell you as the best any NEMT operator as possible. That's the whole key in getting you a good rate, is for them to understand that you're doing the very best job you can in your operation. Sheriff, you'll go to the next slide. Vehicles. The vehicle maintenance program is a very important thing. Report your report your vehicle driver changes immediately. That's real important. The insurance companies don't like it when you have a claim and the driver's not on your driver's list. So be sure that you report those driver changes immediately, and then provide adequate training on the equipment, the lifts, the tie downs, etc. Do quarterly vehicle reviews. So be sure that you're looking at those vehicles on a regular basis to make sure that everything's in safety. One of the things that I've been running across a whole lot lately is people driving without taillights. It just is amazing to me how many people I run across on the road that do not have taillights. And I don't know what the problem is there, but I'm seeing it more and more. And so if you'll do a good vehicle review and make sure that everything's working properly, that can definitely help you on claims. And report your claims immediately, and download your camera footage immediately, to where you make sure that you have that in possession, to where if there's any problems that come up, then you've got that on hand, and it doesn't get away from you. That's real important for claims, as well as for talking to your drivers about what's happened and so on and so forth. Here, if you'll go to the next slide. And that kind of concludes my presentation, but I want to encourage you that you can help your rates. You just have to be very vigilant in what you do. And so if we can help you in any way, we want to be available. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Philip. What a wealth of tips and information you gave. So thank you. And your contact information was on your slide too. So we really got great information from everybody. And now we're up to the question and answer part of our webinar. And we can invite Peter back into the panel. So in case anybody has questions about NEMT, and I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And there is actually one question in the Q&A that I'm going to read. You're welcome to put your questions in the chat, in the Q&A, or raise your hand, or after we finish the written questions, just start talking. So the first question is, it could be for anybody. Why don't insurance companies mandate ambulatory wheelchair and stretcher training for their insured with a partner like NEMT to help reduce accidents and lawsuits? So, okay, so I see Evan is typing an answer.
I was typing, but that was before you started reading. So, but yeah, no, great question. I would say all of the insurance companies want to see that. As far as mandating it, I don't think they're going to mandate it, but the better insurance companies, the ones that offer the best rates, the best coverages, if you don't have something in place, they're probably not going to offer a quote to you. So, having that in place is very important. As far as mandating, a lot of times the way they would handle that is that they just won't offer a quote to you if you don't have those policies and procedures in place.
Thank you, Evan. Would any of our other panelists like to address this question about mandatory training?
No, his answer really covered it. So it's just a matter of the insurance companies recognizing specific training and including that as part of their process.
Okay.
The only thing that I would add is that it is it's a great sales tactic for us when we go to the company and we show that you're doing that. That always helps you look better, which always going to help your rate.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. So our next question is, our insurance agents said that they had a very hard time getting a company to underwrite our policy. Are there certain companies that do a lot of NEMT insurance? The person who asked, listed some well-known names like State Farm, Nationwide, etc. So who wants to address this question? I know both of you provide NEMT insurance, but what else would people like to tell this person?
Yes, to answer your question, and I thought hope I responded correctly in there, but yes, there are companies that handle NEMT insurance. They have programs for them. They're well aware of the industry. The ones you mentioned, State Farm, Nationwide, I know you're probably just listing those, but those do not cover NEMT. But yes, there are companies out there who totally understand it, have been covering the NEMT operators for a very long time.
Okay, thank you. Along the same lines, somebody wants to know if there is a list anywhere of insurance carriers that handle NEMT insurance. National RTAP has never compiled one, but are any of our panelists aware of, a reasonably comprehensive list anywhere?
I am not aware of a list anywhere other than, most of your NEMT specialists will have several markets that they go to, but I don't know of a published list anywhere.
Yeah, there's not going to be any kind of published list. And those carriers change quarterly, I'll tell you most. Some come into the market, some go out. Some have been there for a very long time and more stable, but anyway, again, that kind of goes back to getting into an agent that understands the industry and the market.
Yeah, I will say that I just did a very, very quick and easy Google search for NEMT insurance and got quite a few, in addition to, the panelists here. So there are a lot out there, but certainly listen to Philip and Evan's advice to really get the right one for you. I would say when you're looking for any kind of partner, it's like it's a real partnership. You should interview them, see exactly what they offer, find out if they have references. Really do your own due diligence. Don't just pick somebody at the top of a Google list. Would anybody else like to chime in on that? Other ways you can pick the best NEMT insurer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll chime in. Again, goes back, so Philip and I are agents, so we're the middleman to go out and put our clients with insurance companies. So again, Philip and I both probably rep the same companies, the ones who understand the industry. So like you said, Kara, I wouldn't just find an agent closest to you and say, hey, come quote my NEMT company, because I would say most agents out there don't understand the industry, don't have the partnerships and contracts with the appropriate insurance companies.
Yeah, and it brought to mind a question I have. If you have other modes besides NEMT, and you have an insurance company for that, is it a good idea to stay with one insurer for all of your modes, or maybe to have a separate insurance company that's just as an expert in NEMT for your NEMT insurance?
I would say that you definitely want to go with a market that is very familiar with the NEMT. The other thing I would say is that in your when you're looking at the market itself, when you talk to an agent about quoting your NEMT insurance, ask them how many other NEMT insured that they have. Because if they have 2 or 3, then they're not really an expert in that area, and that's the way you can kind of trim them down to figure out who is an actual provider for NEMT insurance.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Philip. We got another question. Has National RTAP considered starting a captive insurance program for their members? Thank you for that question. I will say no, and we do not plan to. We don't really have members per se. We don't charge for our training and technical assistance. We provide it freely to, as I said in the beginning of this, rural and tribal transit providers and state RTAPs. So we're not going to do anything where we're charging for anything. But one thing we do offer, and you're welcome to contact me afterwards, is for recommendations by your peers. We have a rural transit manager peer forum. So if you are a rural or a tribal transit agency and want to join that, get in touch with me. My contact information will be at the end of this, and say you want to join our forum. And that way, you're not sort of cold calling. You can find out, who other people use and maybe get in touch with them off the forum and see what their experience has been. Not every question does get answered, but a lot of them do. And just to get an idea, I know a couple of people asked, is there a list? Do you have names? We don't today, but you might be able to find out some names from your peers. Okay, we've had some great questions. Are there any others? You can put them in the Q&A, the chat, raise your hand, or at this point, just start talking. We'll wait a minute. Okay, I don't see questions. So what I'm going to do is share my screen again. And just a little wrap up here. You've been a great audience. Thanks for all those questions. Wait, I do see another question. Wonderful. And this one may not be answerable. And we, unfortunately can't really discuss politics in our webinars or otherwise, but there is a question. How, if anybody knows of any actual legislation, they can just say the name of. How is the NEMT funding industry going to be affected positively or negatively by the new government? Is there funding at all for NEMT and funding?
So
I don't know if
Kara,
that's terrible.
I think I can address this without getting into the politics. Anytime there's a change in the administration, there's always a period where the administration will assess the programs and then make their determinations. So the question about if there's funding at all, there's funding. There's already legislation in place to ensure certain amounts. Where those things get focused, we can't answer that until the administration is fully in place and they've established their priorities. So I wouldn't be completely negative on the change. It's just a matter of, like any other time, you have to look at priorities that they're communicating, and then that will lead to how the Medicare and Medicaid programs are going to address NEMT transportation going forward.
Thank you so much, Peter. That's very, very helpful and really well addressed the requester's question. Okay, so we're going to have a lot of other webinars coming up. In fact, there's even one today at 2 to 3 Eastern. So you can have your lunch and then hop on another webinar if besides NEMT insurance, you're interested in intercity transportation. That webinar won't be talking about insurance, but it'll talk about a lot of other things going on in the intercity bus industry. On January 28th, we'll be introducing again, we've had this nice tool for a while, our cost allocation calculator. We've done a lot of enhancements, so whether you've used it or not, you might want to sign up for that. On February 6th, I and one of our review board members will be talking about what's new in the ADA toolkit. That's for Americans with Disabilities Act, one of our large toolkits. They're like encyclopedias, and we update them every couple of years. So we put a lot of great new guidance in it this year. Then for fun, we have a book discussion group at National RTAP. We meet twice a year, also on Zoom, but for the book discussion group, you're welcome to come to Woburn, Massachusetts if you're in the area. So we're discussing a book called The Lost Ticket, which is a fiction book about two writers. They were interested in seeing each other after, and one of them wrote down a phone number. It was lost, and the guy searched for the gal for about 60 years. So it's a really nice story about how you can, meet somebody on a bus and it can affect your life. So when we're doing on February 26th, digital accessibility for transportation providers. And that is if you have a website, which many of you do, or apps or anything like that, how you can make them readable for people with various abilities and disabilities. So in addition, we're having a conference, a really large-scale technical assistance conference in December. And that will be in Austin, Texas. It's on our website. And anybody who has an idea for a presentation is welcome to submit an abstract at this time. Just go to our news conference page and you'll see how to submit. And whether or not you want to present, we hope to see you there. We haven't opened up registration yet, but we will. The conference itself will be December 7th through 10th, but we hope to have some National Transit Institute wraparound training on the last couple of days. So we are really doing a lot, and check out our e-news and our website, and we hope to see you at a lot of future events. So I want to get to the last slide, and what I want to do is thank our fabulous panel who gave their time and expertise today. Peter, Evan, and Philip. I saw by the clapping hand emojis that people really, really found what you were saying helpful. And I know I did. So you really did a great job explaining the situation and giving a lot of really good guidance. So thank you to our audience too. We are National RTAP. Here's our conference and contact information. Here's my contact information. And on the right side is a QR code for a webinar survey. You can